Welcome to the final session of SPX 2021. I'm Lindsay Brown, VP of Sales and Marketing. From the entire Beyond Clean team, we want to thank all of you for your participation, your engagement, and your interest over the past couple of days. Being the final expo spot tempts me to say we saved the best for last, but we were simply so excited to shine a well-deserved spotlight on the companies who constantly innovate on your behalf and on the behalf of the betterment of the industry. And that's what we've been able to do during this expo over the past couple of days. Joining me for this discussion is Justin Poulin, CEO and co-founder, who you've actually heard kicking off each expo feature with a podcast interview. Hank Balch, co-founder and president. Hank is actually the innovator behind the SPX concept, and we'll get into that in a little bit. And also our new VP of Operations, Brett Norton, who recently joined this team, and he's been feverishly working over the past month to make this expo happen. Again, I'm Lindsay Brown, VP of Sales and Marketing. Thank you for joining us for this final expo hour of SPX 2021. As a concept, SPX both this year and last year was the first year that we brought this concept to life. It was a sincere innovation and really a reimagining of what a vendor expo could look like. Obviously, there was a lot at play in terms of the need for being creative, the need for utilizing the online space to your advantage and to our advantage. And I want to just talk through for a moment as we kick off this conversation as a team, what were the biggest benefits, what are the biggest benefits to the industry in offering this type of expo? And Hank, since this was sort of your brainchild, I would love for you to kick this conversation off.
Thanks, Lindsay. And if you think back to last year, and I don't want to bring up any bad memories from last year, but almost all of our expos were completely canceled. And at that point in early spring of 2020, there really was no clear way forward. We didn't know how long this pandemic was going to last. We had no idea how the expos were going to pivot to still meet the need of products and services that our hospitals still needed. Even though the volume of surgeries took a steep dive, there were still all kinds of emergent procedures that had to be done. And anytime procedures are done, we know as Sterile Processing, we're the ones behind the curtain ensuring that patients are being adequately cared for every surgery, every instrument, every time. So back in 2020, we had a choice to make as Beyond Clean. In this opportunity and in this vacuum, would we step up as a team and a company to provide all of these vendors who have all these fantastic products and services who still need to reach the market? Were we going to give them the opportunity to speak to the sterile processing community? And that's what we did. And the interesting thing here in 2021, and the reason that we decided to do it again, not only was it a huge success last year, but the novel and unique approach to how we communicate and engage with the sterile processing industry and the vendors who support them is what's so freaking fun about SPX, because nowhere else in the space, no other expo, no other brand, no other organization leverages social media the way we do. Products and services and vendors show right up on your news feed, right into Facebook, right into LinkedIn, right on YouTube, in a way, again, that even if you attended the conferences in person, you may not even get to every booth. You may not have the opportunity to talk to every vendor. Through SPX and events like this, not only do you have the time to breathe and consume the information, but if you stumble into a booth hour and a product and a services, it just knocks you off your feet, you've got the opportunity to do something right away with it. And I don't want to steal everyone else's thunder, but I think that's one of the most exciting things, is we give you the ability through social media to actually make a decision during the expo, whereas every other expo, virtual or in person, you have to kind of wait until you get home, and you got to wait until you get back to work. But with SPX, you can take those decisions in the moment, right as soon as you say, wow.
And Hank, I have to add something to that. It's also on your terms. We've all, if you've been ever sitting at a vendor booth, people are walking by. They don't necessarily want to talk to everybody or be approached. And so sometimes you get that walk by, they're looking in the opposite direction of the booth. And I think one of the things that is really nice about SPX is that, people who are interested in products and services get to do that on their terms. And so it feels a lot less threatening. There's a lot less pressure. And in many cases, I think that the audience learns a whole lot more about the products and services as well, because they're doing it when they want to and how they want to.
Yeah, and I can throw in some insight from the vendor side of the fence, because I was on that side last year before joining the team. And what I found was that when, we were needing to engage with our audience and be part of, these various expos, it was pretty cumbersome for a lot of the guests to jump in and wade through various, steps in the process to try and get into what was essentially a virtual world that mirrored a vendor expo. And it was the same amount of hours and required everybody to jump in and visit each individual booth in the virtual space. And it was just tough on that front. And I found that when we decided to do SPX, it was brought directly to the audience. There wasn't a lot of legwork involved. It was really simple and very engaging, and we really benefited because of that. It was not something that the customers and our sterile processing techs had to jump in and figure out who they wanted to see and what products they wanted to see. It was just brought directly to them, and it was so easy, and I was thankful for it. It was actually one of the best events that we did, or that we engaged with last year in 2020.
Brett, I want to ask a little bit more detail on that too, because we as an organization, even before you joined a year ago, we were just coming off the heels of the last in-person conference that we supported in Minneapolis, and we actually had our annual meeting, and we had just laid out our entire strategy for the rest of 2020 and into early 2021, and the whole thing blew up within a week. The whole country shut down. And I can imagine when you were in that position that there were a lot of, what are we going to do now, right? We're not going to be in person. In your marketing position, you weren't really sure what to do. And I just want to say it wasn't any different for us. And that's really where I think Hank came up with this idea was let's, reach the audience we already have in this way. So you said it was one of the best events for the company that you were with at the time that you participated in that year. But I'm thinking maybe you could tell us a little bit more about why it was so pivotal to the strategy that you were bringing forward.
Yeah, I think, you mentioned the fact that everybody had to just jump and figure out what to do at the drop of a hat. Nobody knew how to engage with the audience, and every year everybody is so used to the trade shows. You schedule out your year in April, May, June to hit these trade shows. And so the ability to try and get this content and various information to people that you would normally do in a trade show it just exploded. And so we figured the best route was to engage through social media, because it's free, because it's easy, because it's simple. And it was just, it's something that all of us are on a daily basis. I think average time that people spend on social media is about 3 hours a day. So, you're bringing that content to people without them having to, like I said, jump into these virtual booths and submit a fee, pay a standard trade show fee or however many thousands of dollars. And it just, to me, it made the most sense because you guys, and Linz and Hank and Justin too, you guys just were able to just come up with this concept really quickly and it was easy for everybody. So that's probably the best reason and why we did it. So
it was Hank's idea, and Lindsay made it easy.
Yeah, I was gonna say easy for everyone not on the Beyond Clean team, but that's okay. It's worth it. It's worth it. You know, I'm glad that you brought up ease of access, Brett, because I think from an attendee perspective, that's a really important part. Because if you think about it, and this is such a timely conversation to have, because I just went through a closet and found a bag of trade show materials that I brought back home with me probably 4 or 5 years ago from a trade show. And so it's something that I just want to kind of hit home and definitely touch on is from an attendee perspective. There's a certain percentage of walking around a trade show floor to look at the products, to learn about the services. There's a certain percentage to get the swag, right? To get whatever giveaways that the vendors are giving away. So you sit through the spiel, you get your swag, you move on to the next one, you know, avoid some eye contact along the way. But Hank, you put out a recent post in promotion of this SPX 2021 and said, essentially calling all introverts. And I thought that that was such an appropriate post, because what this type of expo allows the attendee to do, the end users in the departments, the department managers and directors, the people making the purchasing decisions, what it allows them to do is not have all of the ancillary stuff detracting from the product information. All you have to do is sit there and scroll, which you normally do anyway on your lunch break or right before you fall asleep, before you drop your phone on your face, you know, whatever it is. You have the opportunity to actually pay attention to the product information, and it's being put out in such a way where it doesn't take a ton of your time. And you can actually choose how much time you want to invest engaging with those specific posts. But all those detractors aren't there, and I think that that's also a benefit. We've talked a lot about social media, and since this is carried out solely on social media, I definitely want to hit on that particular point and talk about the role of social media in the sterile processing space. What are the ways it's being used for good, and how we as a team, since I like to say our headquarters is LinkedIn, because we don't have a physical headquarters. We're spaced out all over the country. But how do we see it sort of transforming the industry in even more ways in the coming years?
Yeah, so I guess I'll start with that question, Lindsay. And obviously I'm addicted to social media. That's a large part of just who I am as a person, not only who we are as a company. And in the timeline of things, in 2019, right, so this is pre-pandemic, at the last live World Congress in the Netherlands, tirelessly presented a presentation called "One Click Could Save a Life," and it was all about social media. It was all about sterile processing. And little did I know that just 6 months later, the pandemic would hit, and really social media was our only option at that point to engage with each other. Now, obviously, like, we were still going to work, you were still in the hospital, but all the social distancing, all the masks, all the vendors were not in the hospital, so you couldn't have any conversation or networking with them unless you're doing it through the phone, through email, through social media. And all of it hit in the spring of 2020, but for Beyond Clean, we've been talking about this topic for years and trying to encourage not only the vendor community, but also the sterile processing community to get engaged, to start building these online relationships now, because when you need the network, it's too late to start building it. In March of 2020, when everyone needed to ask questions like, how do we reprocess masks? Can we reprocess masks? What are the answers in now the spring of 2021 for the wrap shortage? All of these questions are thrown out to who? To your social media network. And the larger your network, the more vibrant and active your network, the better answers and better community that you're going to get. So I think the last couple of years have really confirmed all of those prophecies, if you will, that we've been saying for the last 3 years, that it's important for our industry and our departments and our own careers to be as connected as possible, not only with the folks in our hospital, in our community in the region, but really the entire industry around the globe, because this is one global community and we should be having global conversations.
I just think over the next few years, we're going to just see greater and greater adoption. There's already a much bigger level of interest from other companies. We obviously have spoken to many of them. We may be supporting them, showing them really our proof of concept and how to leverage that. And especially around education, what we're seeing is, more podcasts are popping up. But I think the power of the movement that's been going on since we got started with the podcast has been that, the value that's being put out there is totally built around education now. It's not just, here's our product, here's our service, here's the benefits to you, which is kind of like the traditional format for talking about, what you have to provide the industry. And I think it's shifting now, and it's providing additional value along with the value proposition or maybe the specifics around a product or a service. And I think that is really doing our industry a great benefit, because it's not only educating people as they're learning about the industry, but it's helping paint the context for this world that these products and services are going in. And we've seen such an exponential increase in new technology, new science that goes into telling us things that maybe we had a hunch about, but we really didn't have any objective data to know that, this can't be cleaned correctly. That conversation's not a new conversation. There's just new technologies to help us put it into context. And I think that's where the products and services are just so helpful when they're packaged with education and information. And you hear a lot about it now too in value-based purchasing, when we're going out and looking as hospitals to acquire a new product or a service. It's not who's the cheapest or can we get X amount of savings just on line items. They're really looking at, what kind of value, what kind of efficiencies, what is this going to do to reduce, hospital-acquired infections and the costs that are associated with that. And that's because it's got to be science-based. And this industry just needs to continue pushing towards that. And I think that's where this new model of education packaged with the value of the products and services is so critical to anybody who is going to market or continues to go to market with the product.
If you think about the value of education, either let's take the two different scenarios. You're in person at an expo, you're online at an expo. The value that you bring at an in-person expo is only as valuable as the audience that is in attendance. And if that audience is in attendance and they follow through on bringing that information back to benefit their department, and that's a really big if. And so using social media as that way to not only gather information, but share information, that information sharing component, I think, is just going to, obviously there are some detriments, as is the nature of social media, but in terms of the ability and the possibilities and the opportunity to add incredible amounts of value in the dissemination of important information to different departments around the world, I think that's really where social media shines.
Well, Lindsay, let me bring up an important point here that we've been alluding to, but maybe have not said. The expos, the in-person expos, are very expensive for vendors. Everyone kind of knows that, especially in the vendor space. I don't have to tell you how much they charge you for a square foot of carpet, right? But to attend these expos, all the travel, the time off for technicians, right? So let's talk about it from the technician's perspective. You have to get time off. It's got to be approved. You have to pay for travel. You have to pay for lodging. You have to pay for food. You have to pay for the registration for whatever event it is that you're going to. It's a very expensive thing. And so the total numbers of sterile processing frontline technicians, let's just leave out managers and directors for a second, but what percentage of the industry's actual people using the products and benefiting from the services get to see these new products and engage with these vendors? Very, very small percentage of the total folks out there. Through XPX and through social media, we democratize all of the products and services conversation so that anybody, no matter what your job title, no matter what your bank account says, you get this same information and access to these vendors. And that, again, there's so many upsides to this that I don't think virtual expos are ever going to replace in-person expos, but they add a tremendous amount of value at an in-person expo can never do, because you're never going to reach the number of users that you can in person as you can through a social media option like this.
Yeah, and I think, to piggyback off of that, the whole aspect to this is time, right? I think when you're talking not traveling and not attending these various events, the sterile processing techs, as we know, are busy, and it's not gonna not be busy going forward. The hospitals are needing to catch up. The hospitals are going to be ramping up elective surgeries more and more. So they don't have the time to take multiple days to go to these events, or sometimes they don't have time to take an entire day to just do CE. But what they probably do have time for is an hour. You can pop off and listen to a webinar for an hour with approved CE content. And there you go. You've got 1 credit after an hour, and then you can go back about your day. So I think the time factor is also incredibly beneficial when you're talking social media, not only just for SPX, but for, education in general.
This really tees up something that Lindsay spearheaded over the last year, which was supporting these regional conferences. And I know at some point we are going to go back to having these in-person events. Like Hank, you just said, it's never going to replace it, but it should be complementary. And I think, Lindsay, you really did get this regionalized online conference so that chapters could still deliver education going across the country over the past year. And I know even our model with that is going to have to continue to evolve.
Absolutely. And as is the nature of Beyond Clean, I feel as though our team constantly innovates. I'll say on a daily basis from my perspective. You guys keep me busy, which is great. We're constantly coming up with educational content and new ideas for events like SPX 2021, like virtual regional conferences and the global conferences that we've done in the last couple of years, forging vendor partnerships that continue to bring value to the industry. So as a final part of this discussion, I want to talk about what we're most excited about bringing to the industry this year and what we have brought that we'll continue to refine from the last year as well.
Someone else can go first this time.
I guess.
And actually, why don't I kick it off actually? Because being Brett, you now take the crown as the newest member of the Beyond Clean leadership team, and so welcome to it, my friend. But over the last year, it's been a whirlwind. We've done some incredible things. We're a small and nimble team who understands the industry. We speak sterile processing. That's the language that we speak, and I think that that's such a huge benefit when we're dreaming up these new ideas to add value. And something that I'm really excited about, like everyone, we had to pivot when we did our first in-person Minneapolis event last year. We had to pivot that and completely go virtual. And so the virtual event platform that we now use for the Beyond Clean team has the capability to bring the education across the globe. And we continue to see upwards of 25, 30 countries represented at our virtual events. And I think that that's just such an incredible testament to the dedication that professionals around the globe have to improving themselves as professionals and staying up to date with the latest innovations, the latest conversations, the latest, we'll say, disruptive topics, because y'all know that Beyond Clean likes to bring disruptive topics to the table, and you'll see more of that coming this year as we introduce a new Talking Dirty segment to all of our virtual events. So a little teaser for that, so stay tuned for that.
I think one of the things I'm looking forward to is just seeing a lot of our partners and seeing new partners just continue to adopt social media. And, we get good ideas from the companies and the individuals that we work with, and from, all of the frontline technicians and managers and supervisors constantly feeding us with good ideas, or saying, listen, I see you did this and it just doesn't quite work for me because of this. And then we adjust the strategy. So like, I'm looking forward to more feedback from the industry. I'm looking forward to watching our partners continue to evolve and grow in the way that they utilize social media and really just drive this industry forward.
Yeah, and I think I can, Linz, you pointed out that I'm the newest member here, so I think really I'm just excited for everything that Beyond Clean team does and that we do. It's just an amazing journey, and I've been a part of it on the vendor side, and to be in the trenches, so to speak, and behind the curtains and watching how this team evolves and grows by the hour, so to speak. I think, I mean, we're
You're drinking
constantly
from a fire hose.
yeah, constantly coming up with new ideas. And, we are in the social media space and the virtual space and everything, but we will be out there in person and hybrid events and doing some more on that front. But I just, in general, from me, it's just the overall excitement about being part of this whole journey with everybody.
Definitely stay tuned to beyondclean.net. We have a CE credit hub where you can access all of those CE credits, podcasts, webinars. I know that probably by next week we'll dream up another idea in terms of continuing education opportunities. So definitely sign up for our email newsletter. That's the best way to stay up to date on all the latest and greatest Beyond Clean news and events. And to everyone who's tuned in to this expo, it's been an incredible 2 days. We've had an opportunity to shine a spotlight on the people, like I said at the beginning of this conversation, who are constantly innovating on your behalf. And as a team, there is no greater honor than to do that. And so we want to thank all of the vendor partners who said yes to this crazy idea last year and then said yes again this year. It's a testament to your dedication to the industry. And for all of you in attendance who are frontline technicians or department leaders, wow, our passion bleeds over for you. And I hope that you can feel it in everything that we put out into this industry in terms of content, in terms of discussions that we start, and like I said, all that we do. So from our team to yours, happy SPX 2021. We invite you all to join us again next Friday for the Prove It conference, where we will be shining a spotlight on sterile processing quality. Guys, it's a whirlwind working with you, but I wouldn't change it for the world. So
Neither would
thanks for keeping me busy.
Me neither.
Thank you for all the hard work you put into this event, Lindsay and Brett. I know it's a quick adjustment for you just joining the team as we were kicking this off and really putting everything together. So thank you both. And Hank, thank you for putting together such a great idea at such a timely point in our history, not only for the country, but for the industry of sterile processing as well.